I here in the States, we have like the Boston Marathon, and I've qualified for Boston 13 times, but I really wanted to qualify for the Olympic trials. Like I wanted to run, I didn't necessarily have ambitions of making it to the Olympics, but I wanted to, you have to run under 2 hours and 45 minutes in a marathon. So that's a, 6:17-minute pace. And so I was training really hard in 2019, and I had taken a job. I was working in Portland, Oregon at as an acute care dietitian. And I just suddenly noticed I wasn't recovering well from workouts. Like I was extra kind of achy. And, at first you're like, well, I'll just, I'll try to stretch more, rest more, ice more. But then I noticed I was kind of feeling dizzy and shaky during runs. I was not feeling well throughout the day. I wasn't sleeping well. And I was kind of at a loss because I was like, I had this huge goal, and I had ran a 2:54 marathon. So I was like, I really want to put it all out there and try to do this. And so I reached out to a couple friends, a couple people I know who were sports dietitians. And they said, hey, Michelle, like, you're probably just not eating enough carbohydrates. I said, are you sure? I'm getting like 300 grams, sometimes 350 grams a day. And they're like, oh, you need more. Oh, you're getting 6 times a day. You should be eating 8 times a day. And, long distance runners so I'm like, all right, I'm all in, let's do this. And things obviously got worse. I noticed, I started to have panic attacks. I hadn't had those in years. One day I was just so anxious I couldn't go to work. And finally, the kind of end moment was I came home from work. I just had a really rough day at the hospital. I had a patient pass away, and I came home early, and I literally like fell asleep. I think it was like 5 p.m. I fell asleep, but I woke up at like 2 a.m. and it just felt like my muscles were on fire. Like everything hurt. And I didn't know what to do. At this point I had done what I thought I needed to do. I've been icing, stretching, eating. And so I'm walking around that, my kitchen at 2 a.m. What do I do? And I decided like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So I drove to our local gas station. I got 20 pounds of ice. I put it in the bathtub. So it's like 3 a.m. I'm sitting in an ice bath crying. And, my wife comes in and is like, maybe we should do something different. And I'm like, yes, that's it. I'm done. And no more running. I'm too old. At that point, I was 36. I'm like, this is a young person's game. This is a 25-year-old game. I'm done. I'm never running again. I'm tired because I was broken. I was physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, spiritually exhausted. And I just made peace that night. Like I'm no longer a distance runner. This is it. And so if I wasn't going to run, that next day, I said, well, why don't I just not eat so many carbohydrates? Like maybe try a ketogenic diet or something like that. And my only goal was like, I just want to get enough protein. Maybe if I eat more protein, maybe my muscles will heal. And then I came across 2 things that changed my life. One, the carnivore diet. I saw Sean Baker in the carnivore diet, and I was like, this is nuts. Like I can get behind eating meat, but all meat. But then I came across Zach Bitter, who is, at that time, he was the world record holder in the 100-mile race. And he follows a very low carbohydrate diet. And I was kind of blown away. I was like, how can you be successful? Like, because I knew that you could eat low carbohydrates and run very slowly. But I'm like, this guy's doing 6:40 pace. Like, that's amazing. Like, breaking records. And so I decided, I sent Zach an email. I was just curious, like, hey, can you tell me more about this? And then I just decided, you know what, why not try like a carnivore type elimination diet just for 30 days? Like at that point I had nothing to lose. Like I was literally in the bathtub at 3 a.m, and ice. And so that was the time I decided to do that. And, and, I have a history, obviously, of an eating disorder, and my partner wanted none of it. She was very concerned that this way of eating was eating disordered. This is going to set you back. This is terrible. But yeah, I just had some strange intuition. Like, I think I need to do this. I think this makes sense to me. I reached out to several people in the community. And I was shocked. There's so many men and women, and I was, they were so kind. They gave me information. I was like, hey, my health is a mess. You look happy. I'm not happy. Gave me some information, pointed me in the right direction. And so I was like, all right, let's just give this a whirl and see how it goes.
So at this point then, you've totally given up running. You've stopped altogether. All you're doing is just basically trying to concentrate on getting some better nutrition.
Yeah, just, and that was truly my only goal was like, you know what, let's take the next 30 days. let's just see. Let's see if the extra protein heals. Let's see if because yeah, at that point, like I said, my anxiety was awful. I was hungry all the time. I was hurting all the time. I'm taking way too much ibuprofen, and I was kind of scared. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And so I figured if I just took the running out and then focused on protein, and that my goal was only to do this for a very short period of time. I had zero intention of being a long-term low carbohydrate person.
Yeah, it's great that you even thought that, though, and you even set that goal and thought, right, I'm going to do it for 30 days or 4 weeks, whatever you did, because lots of people think, oh, well, maybe I'll try a keto diet, or maybe I'll try this diet, try that diet. And then they do it for a couple of days and think, no, that's not for me. So it's great that you did set that time span of 30 days, because when we work with people in our reset community, I always say you need at least a minimum of 4 weeks, especially if you're training as well. I wouldn't recommend training whilst you're doing something like that. And it's great to hear that you dropped the training on the head altogether, because you was just concentrating purely on getting better, purely on helping your muscles, purely on recovery. So by dropping whether it was intentional or not at the time, by stopping running, you probably went through like what was more known as a reset period quicker. So tell us about how your body began to start to feel after a week, 2 weeks.
Well, and here's the funny thing too. And I think you made a really good point. If you do a ketogenic, if you're a very high carbohydrate human, which most humans are, I mean, we just eat, it's so sad. I mean, as a nation, as a world, we're just being crippled by all these carbohydrates. But the first week is not fun. I noticed I had a really, really bad headache by the third or fourth day, because I didn't know if I could redo it. I would have made sure I had a lot of electrolytes and much more fluid. But I noticed at first, like the first few days, I did not feel good. I was like, so I'm so glad that I didn't give up, and because I even reached out to somebody and said, look, am I doing this right? I feel awful. And they're like, no, you kind of got to get through that initial period. It's going to take a minute, because your body's just switching. You're so used to burning carbs. So now you're going to be having to burn fat. So I was like, all right. But actually within a week, I noticed that my energy was more stable. And my muscles weren't hurting. And I kind of thought like, oh, I'm not running. So of course, a week I'm, not running. But then when I was still in the, working as a dietitian, and it's kind of funny because, you're in the office in the morning and everybody's eating their bagels and bananas. And I'm here with this like pound of ground beef, and they're like, oh, that's different, but I'll never forget, we were at a meeting, and one of my dietitian coworkers was kind of like shaky and was like, oh, I got to get a snack. Like this meeting's going on too long. Do you need something? And I said, oh, I said, I'm fine. I'm going to eat lunch around noon. And she's like, Michelle, it's almost 2. And that would have never happened in my high carb days. Like I had to eat every 2 to 3 hours, or I was shaky. I was irritable. I was constantly eating. And I also noticed like, I just felt more calm. I was able to deal with difficult patient cases easier. By the second week, it was really interesting, and for somebody like myself who has been running for, since I was 14, the world didn't end. I stopped running, and I also wasn't worrying about it or obsessing about it. But kind of a big pivotal moment happened on the third week. I came home from work, and my wife had gotten home early that day, and she said, can you come sit with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. What's going on? And she said, I'm not sure I like this carnivore way of eating yet, but this is the best your anxiety has been in the 11 years I've known you. 3 weeks. And at that point, we both were like, what is this? And that kind of led us down a massive rabbit hole of research and studies and reaching out to so many low carbohydrate experts. I've been so lucky to get to meet with and interview people like Dr. Eric Westman, Dr. Chris Palmer, Ben Bickman, and just a lot of the, the bigger names in the low carb community, and just pick their brains, get their research, ask them what's going on. And it became very clear to me that pretty much everything I had been taught as a dietitian was completely backwards.